When we desperately try to hold on to someone at all costs, when we sacrifice our dignity and humiliate ourselves in the name of love, we are actually sending a powerful and damaging message to our subconscious mind. I am not enough on my own. I need someone else to validate my worth. This internal message slowly erodes our sense of self-respect, and without realizing it, we lose the very essence that makes us attractive to others. We cease to be a source of admiration and become someone who is easy to discard, easy to overlook. Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, taught us that true love, the kind that nurtures and sustains, is born when we have fully integrated all aspects of ourselves. It emerges when we no longer seek someone to complete us, but instead choose to share our journey from a place of wholeness and fulfillment. However, most people confuse love with attachment. They mistake emotional neediness for affection, believing that another person can fill the voids they feel inside. But this belief is nothing more than an illusion, a psychological trap set by the unconscious mind. It is a reflection of our deepest wounds, our unresolved traumas, and the emotional scars we have carried since childhood. When someone degrades themselves for love, when they emotionally crawl at the feet of another in the desperate hope of being accepted, what they are really doing is exposing their most hidden wound. They are reliving the fear of abandonment, the excruciating feeling of not being enough, the belief that they have no value without the presence and approval of another person. But Jung offers a radical perspective on relationships. Everything we experience in love is a mirror of what lies within us. If someone ignores you, rejects you, or fails to appreciate you, it is often because there is a part of you that has not yet learned to acknowledge and honor itself. The problem is that society has conditioned us to believe that love should be a struggle, a battle, an unending sacrifice. We have been told that we must fight relentlessly to keep the person we love, that we must prove our affection without limits or conditions. But this concept is not only flawed, it is dangerous. Love is not about submission. It is not about diminishing ourselves or settling for less than we deserve. Love, in its truest form, is expansion. It is growth. It is the evolution of two individuals who walk together without losing themselves in the process. Jung spoke of individuation as the path to the totality of the self. This journey towards self-completion cannot be achieved if we live through the gaze of another, if we seek in external love the validation we deny ourselves. When we depend on someone else's love to feel valuable, we become prisoners of that relationship. We live in constant fear of losing it, and in that fear, we begin to compromise, to settle, to betray our own needs and desires. This is where humiliation takes root. We cling to those who reject us. We emotionally beg for affection, accepting breadcrumbs of love with the desperate hope that one day things will change. But here is the truth. Real love is never begged for. Authentic love does not arise from desperation or lack. It flourishes from inner balance and self-assurance. When you love from a place of insecurity and fear, you inevitably create toxic relationships. Relationships built on dependency, manipulation, and suffering. On the other hand, when you love yourself enough to never lower your worth, when you possess the inner strength to let go of what no longer serves you, something extraordinary happens. You begin to attract a different kind of relationship, one where you are valued, respected, and cherished for who you truly are. You radiate a self-sufficiency, a confidence, a light that does not seek approval from anyone else, but shines on its own, unapologetically and powerfully. Carl Jung taught us that everything in our lives responds to the energy we project from our unconscious mind. Our thoughts, beliefs, and emotional patterns shape the reality we experience, whether we realize it or not. If you treat yourself with dignity, if you value and respect yourself, you will attract unbreakable connections, relationships that are not based on need or fear, but on genuine connection, on mutual understanding, and a shared journey of growth. Healthy love does not enslave. It does not hurt. It does not demand that you betray your essence just to keep someone by your side. True love arises when two whole individuals choose to walk together, not out of necessity, not because they fear loneliness, but because they consciously choose each other. And that choice can only happen when both have done the necessary inner work to truly know themselves, to heal their wounds, and to stop projecting their unresolved fears and insecurities onto their partner. If you have ever felt that you must humble yourself to be loved, if you have fallen into the trap of begging for attention, if you have believed that love must be earned through effort and sacrifice, pause for a moment. Reflect. Ask yourself, is this person truly meant for you? Is it truly worth losing yourself just to keep someone else in your life? Because the truth is, when you stop humiliating yourself for love, when you learn to let go with dignity, when you value yourself enough to refuse anything less than what you deserve, something powerful happens. Real love arrives, a love without chains, without fear, without dependency, a love that does not destroy you, but instead helps you grow, a love that is free and at the same time unbreakable. When you decide not to lower yourself for love, when you stand firm in your dignity and self-respect, you become magnetic. Not because you are trying to impress anyone, but because you are in harmony with your true self. People who do not emotionally crawl for attention share something in common. They radiate security, confidence, and authenticity. They do not seek validation because they already know who they are. And that deep self-knowledge is what makes them truly irresistible. Carl Jung showed us that what we attract into our lives is never a matter of chance. Every experience, every relationship, every connection we form is a reflection of our psyche. If you constantly find yourself in relationships where you must beg for love, where you feel ignored, undervalued, or treated with indifference, it is not merely bad luck. It is a sign that something within you needs to be addressed. Perhaps it is a wound of abandonment, a fear of not being enough, or an unconscious belief that love must always come with suffering. Whatever it is, it will continue to manifest in your relationships over and over again, until you decide to face it. Many people believe that if they try harder, if they give more, if they are more patient, more understanding, eventually they will be valued. But love does not work that way. Love is not a negotiation. It is not a transaction where the one who gives the most automatically receives more in return. In reality, the more you struggle to be seen, the more you sacrifice yourself in an attempt to receive love, the less valuable you become in the eyes of the other person. Because attraction does not stem from need, it stems from respect. And no one truly respects someone who forgets themselves just to keep another person around. Jung spoke of the shadow archetype as a part of us that we prefer to ignore. In love, this shadow manifests when we allow our fears to dictate our choices, when we accept less than we deserve, when we justify someone's indifference, when we convince ourselves that we must change who we are just to be loved. All of this is a projection of something we refuse to acknowledge within ourselves, a lack of self-love. But instead of facing that reality, many seek to compensate for it through external validation. They believe that if they can just get someone else to love them, then they will finally be worthy. But this is a fatal mistake. Healthy love never arises from desperation. You cannot build a solid relationship if the foundation is the fear of abandonment. You cannot attract a strong, fulfilling connection if you are willing to endure anything just to avoid being alone. True connection happens when two people choose each other freely, not because they need to fill a void, not because they are afraid of being alone, but because their energy aligns naturally. But for that to happen, you must first do the inner work. You must learn to let go, to release those who are unwilling to value you, to close doors that lead nowhere. Letting go is not losing. Letting go is winning space for something better. It is opening yourself to the possibility that there is someone out there who will truly see your worth. Someone who is ready to embrace what you have to offer. But as long as you hold on to what does not nourish you, you will continue to block the arrival of what you truly need. Carl Jung taught us that life is always giving us signs, but more often than not, we fail to listen. We cling to relationships that drain us, believing that if we let go, we will be left with nothing. But the truth is, emptiness only exists when we have not learned to be at peace with ourselves. When you let go of someone who does not value you, when you refuse to beg for love, when you decide that you would rather be alone than in bad company, something extraordinary happens. Your energy shifts. Your perception of yourself strengthens. And the most surprising thing, many times, the very person who once ignored you begins to see you differently, not because you did anything special, but because the energy of desperation and scarcity disappears. When you stop chasing, you start attracting. But this is not a strategy to win someone back. This is not a game of manipulation. It is a real transformation within you, a profound shift that allows you to live from a place of wholeness rather than lack. Because when you truly love yourself, when you respect and value who you are, you do not need to convince anyone to choose you. The people who are not aligned with your energy naturally drift away, while the right people begin to appear. Self-love is not just a trendy concept. It is not about standing in front of a mirror and repeating affirmations or posting inspirational quotes on social media. It is an act of deep self-respect. It is about having standards. It is about knowing when to say no. It is about refusing to settle for the bare minimum. It is about understanding that you do not need to humiliate yourself to be loved. Because real love, the kind that truly matters, will never put you in a position where you have to beg for it. The problem is that many people have been conditioned to believe that love must be painful. They have grown up with the idea that love means enduring suffering, fighting endless battles, and making extreme sacrifices for the relationship to work. They have been taught that love is about tolerance, that showing affection means putting up with indifference, disappointment, and even mistreatment, with the hope that one day the other person will finally see their worth. But that is not love. That is a distortion rooted in fear. Carl Jung explained that when someone accepts less than they deserve, when they settle for emotional crumbs, what they are really doing is reflecting their own lack of self-worth. And this reflection does not just affect their romantic relationships, it influences every area of their life. Because the way you allow others to treat you is a direct reflection of how you treat yourself. If you accept less than what you are worth in love, you are likely doing the same in your career, in your friendships, and in every aspect of your life. When a person humiliates themselves for love, they do so because they believe that without that relationship, they will never find happiness. They hold on as tightly as they can to something that no longer works, convinced that if they just try harder, everything will change. But the truth is, relationships that need to be forced are simply not meant for you. You cannot force someone to love you. You cannot make someone see your value if they are not willing to. Carl Jung taught us that the human psyche seeks wholeness. It craves the integration of all its parts, striving for completeness and self-unity. However, one of the greatest dangers of emotional dependency is that it fragments the self. When you rely on someone else to validate your worth, when you need external approval to feel complete, you are unconsciously surrendering your personal power. You are handing over the key to your emotional well-being to someone outside of yourself, and this inevitably leads to suffering. But here's the crucial point. The moment you stop humiliating yourself, the moment you begin to recognize your own value and set clear boundaries, something incredible happens. You don't just reclaim your dignity, you also start attracting a completely different kind of love. A love that doesn't require begging. A love where you don't have to prove your worth. Because the right person, the one who truly belongs in your life, will recognize your value without you having to convince them. This is the power of authenticity. When you live in alignment with who you truly are, when you stop acting from a place of lack and begin to act from a place of wholeness, everything shifts. Your relationships transform. You no longer feel the need to persuade anyone that you are worthy of love. You simply are. And that internal change is reflected in the way others perceive you. If you have ever felt the need to prove to someone that you deserve their love, if you have ever believed that you must change yourself or work excessively hard just to be accepted, then stop for a moment and ask yourself, what part of me is still wounded? What am I projecting onto this person? Because Jung reminded us that the external world is merely a reflection of our internal state. The relationships you attract are a direct mirror of the relationship you have with yourself. If, at this moment, you find yourself trapped in a relationship where you are not valued, if you feel like you have had to betray your own essence out of fear of losing someone, then it is time to turn inward. Because the problem is not the other person. The problem lies in what you are allowing. And as long as you continue to accept less than what you truly deserve, you will keep attracting the same kind of relationships over and over again. Love should not be a constant battle. You should not feel like you have to prove your worth or work tirelessly just to be seen. Authentic love, the kind that is real and lasting, flows naturally. It is free of manipulation, free of mind games, free of strategies. It comes into your life when you are no longer desperately searching for it. When you have learned to be at peace with yourself. So if you ever feel the need to humiliate yourself for someone to love you, stop. Ask yourself, why am I willing to do this? What fear is driving this behavior? And most importantly, how would my life change if I truly started valuing myself? If I made myself a priority? If I stopped begging for what should be given to me freely? Because when you change the way you see yourself, you change the way the world sees you. And when you stop humiliating yourself for love, that's when real love finds you. A love that doesn't make you feel unworthy. A love that doesn't make you doubt yourself. A love that doesn't require you to become someone you're not. A love that, instead of breaking you, lifts you up. A love that is unbreakable. The moment you decide that you will no longer beg for love, the moment you realize that your worth is not dependent on someone else's validation, something inside you shifts permanently. You stop settling for relationships where you are just an option. You stop competing for attention. You stop feeling like you have to do more and more just to make someone stay. Instead, you learn to let go, not with bitterness, not with pain, but with the certainty that if something does not flow naturally, it was never meant for you in the first place. Carl Jung taught us that everything we experience in our relationships is merely a projection of our inner world. The dynamics we face in our interactions with others, whether positive or negative, are reflections of the beliefs, wounds, and narratives deeply ingrained within our subconscious. If you repeatedly find yourself in relationships where you are not valued, where you constantly give more than you receive, where love feels like an uphill battle rather than something natural and fulfilling, this is not a coincidence. It is a mirror of what you subconsciously believe you deserve. On a conscious level, you might insist that you want to be loved deeply and genuinely. You might long for a healthy, stable, and enriching relationship. Yet, if within your inner world wounds remain unhealed, if old fears still whisper doubts into your mind, you will continue attracting the same painful patterns over and over again. The key to breaking this cycle is integration. Jung emphasized the critical importance of integrating the shadow, the part of ourselves that we prefer to ignore, suppress, or deny. The shadow holds our deepest fears, insecurities, and beliefs that were shaped in early childhood, past experiences, or cultural conditioning. Perhaps, hidden within your shadow, there is a belief that you are not enough, that love must be earned through effort and sacrifice, that if someone leaves you, it must be because you did something wrong. And as long as that belief remains active in your subconscious, you will continue to attract relationships that reaffirm it. But here is the truth. You do not need to prove your worth to anyone. You do not need to convince someone to love you, because real love does not function that way. Authentic love is not a negotiation, a power struggle, or a desperate attempt to gain validation from another person. When you meet the right person, love flows naturally. There are no games, no uncertainty, no need to alter yourself to fit someone else's expectations. And here is the irony. This kind of love only manifests when you have first learned to be at peace with yourself. One of the most common mistakes people make is believing that the love of another person will fill the emptiness they feel inside. But external love can never compensate for a lack of self-love. This is why so many people, even when in relationships, continue to feel lonely. They continue to feel that something is missing. And it is not because their partner does not love them, but because they have yet to learn how to love themselves. The only way to attract an unbreakable bond is to become someone who does not need a relationship to feel complete. This does not mean resigning yourself to being alone forever. Rather, it means learning to enjoy your own company, to find fulfillment in your own life, without depending on someone else to provide it for you. Because when you reach that point, when you truly understand your worth, the right people begin to appear, not because you are actively searching for them, but because your energy has shifted. Jung stated that what we repress in our unconscious mind manifests in our external experiences. If a part of you believes that love is suffering, you will attract relationships where love hurts. If a part of you believes you must be perfect to be loved, you will attract people who always make you feel like you are not enough. But if you transform those beliefs, if you begin to see yourself as someone who deserves love effortlessly, without struggle, your reality will change. Love should not be a burden. It should not feel like a constant battle, a weight you have to carry. True love is light, fluid, and expansive. It is not a correction of what you believe is missing in you. Rather, it is an extension of who you already are. But to experience this kind of love, you must first allow yourself to release everything that does not align with it. Do not be afraid to walk away from what does not serve you. Do not be afraid to let go of those who do not recognize your value. Because the space you create by letting go of what is not meant for you will be filled with something far greater. When you stop humiliating yourself for love, when you stop begging for scraps of affection, when you decide that your dignity is more important than any relationship, the universe responds, and what comes next is always infinitely better than what you left behind. When you establish boundaries, when you refuse to accept less than what you truly deserve, you discover something powerful. The love that truly transforms is not the love that comes from others, but the love that is born within you. For far too long, society has led you to believe that finding the right person is the most important goal in life, that romantic love is the ultimate fulfillment, that without someone by your side, you cannot be whole. But this is a dangerous illusion. True wholeness does not come from being with someone else. It comes from within. And when you finally understand this, when you step into your own power and recognize your intrinsic worth, love ceases to be something you chase. Instead, it becomes something that naturally gravitates toward you. Because you are no longer seeking validation, you are radiating it. And that is the moment when love, in its purest form, finds you effortlessly. Carl Jung taught us that true wholeness does not come from being in a relationship, but from the integration of one's own self. The real challenge, however, is that many people seek love from a place of lack. They are driven by the fear of being alone, by the desperate need for someone else to make them feel valuable, by an internal void that they believe can only be filled through another person. And when love is sought from such a place, the inevitable result is imbalanced relationships. These are relationships where one person gives far more than they receive, where they constantly feel like they must fight to be seen, where they have to exert a continuous effort just to keep the other person interested. This is not love. It is emotional dependence, and emotional dependence never leads to deep, stable bonds. Instead, it creates fragile illusions that shatter at the first sign of conflict. What truly forms an unbreakable connection is freedom. Not the kind of freedom that disregards the other person's presence or feelings, but the freedom to be fully yourself without the paralyzing fear of losing someone. Jung spoke of the process of individuation as the path toward true self-realization. In love, this means that two individuals must first be whole within themselves before they can truly build something meaningful together. If you feel that your life loses its meaning without another person, then what you are experiencing is not love. It is an escape from yourself. This fear of losing someone is one of the most intense emotions a person can experience. It is so powerful that many prefer to stay in unfulfilling relationships rather than face their own solitude. But here lies the real secret. Solitude is not your enemy. Solitude is the space where you truly discover yourself, where you learn who you are without the influence of others, where you heal the wounds that make you rely on external validation to feel worthy. And when you have gone through that journey, when you have learned to enjoy your own company and to embrace your own completeness, the love that comes afterward is entirely different. You stop feeling anxious about whether someone will leave because you understand that the right person will stay without you needing to convince them. You no longer feel the urge to impress others because you are no longer seeking external validation. You stop accepting the bare minimum in relationships because you realize that you would rather be alone than be in a relationship where you are not truly respected. And that is where the magic happens. When you no longer need love as a means of filling a void, you begin to attract a completely different kind of person, someone who is secure, self-aware, and fully comfortable in their own worth. These individuals have an entirely different energy about them. They do not try to please everyone. They do not desperately seek attention. They do not use relationships as a temporary escape from their inner emptiness. Instead, they exist in a state of wholeness. And from that wholeness, they create deep, authentic connections. Carl Jung once said that true love arises when two souls are aligned in their process of growth, not when they seek to complete each other, but when they strive to expand together. Love, in its purest form, is not about filling voids or seeking validation. It is about two individuals who have cultivated their own sense of wholeness and choose to share that completeness with each other. If, in the past, you have ever felt the need to humiliate yourself for love, if you have found yourself working excessively hard just to be chosen by someone, then it is time to ask yourself why. What fear is hiding behind that desperate need to hold on to someone who does not truly value you? Why do you believe that love must be earned through sacrifice? The truth is, love, real, profound, and meaningful love, does not require you to prove your worth. You do not have to beg for love. You do not have to perform or conform to someone else's expectations just to be accepted. The only thing you need to do is be yourself. But the best version of yourself, not the version that bends and molds to fit into another person's idea of who you should be. When you stop begging for love, when you realize that you do not have to convince anyone of your worth, everything shifts. Your energy changes. Your perception of relationships changes. Suddenly, the people who once ignored you start to see you differently, not because you have transformed for them, but because you have transformed for yourself. And when that shift happens, the connections you attract become entirely different. You no longer seek someone to fill the empty spaces within you. Instead, you seek someone who adds to the fullness you have already cultivated. And that kind of love, when it arrives, is unbreakable. It is a love that does not depend on fear, attachment, or the need for approval. It is a love that stands strong because it is built on a foundation of self-awareness and inner completeness. When you truly understand your worth, when you stop begging for love and start prioritizing yourself, you come to a profound realization. You have never truly lost anyone who was meant for you. You have only let go of those who were never ready to love you as you deserved. You begin to see that love is not a power struggle. It is not a game where the one who cares less wins. It is not a relentless sacrifice of your dignity just to hold on to someone who fails to see your true brilliance. The key to an unbreakable bond does not lie in manipulation, in strategy, or in pretending to be someone you are not in order to please another. It lies in authenticity, in daring to be exactly who you are, without fear of others walking away. Because the ones who leave when you reveal your true self were never there for the real you. They were drawn to the version of you that was willing to please them, to seek their approval, to tolerate what should never have been tolerated. And that is not love, that is convenience. Jung taught us that life is a reflection of our unconscious mind. If you keep repeating the same painful patterns in love, if you continue to attract relationships where you feel you must struggle to be seen, it is because there is something within you that remains unhealed. And until you confront it, until you choose to break free from those cycles, you will keep encountering the same challenges over and over again. But when you do the inner work, when you dare to release everything that is not aligned with your true self, the love that comes after is unlike anything you have ever experienced before, because it no longer comes from a place of emptiness or need. It comes from a place of wholeness, from a place of deep self-acceptance, and love that is born from fullness is the only love that can truly last. If you've made it this far, I want to invite you to reflect deeply for a moment. How many times have you felt that you had to try too hard, almost to the point of exhaustion, just to be loved by someone? How many times have you justified behaviors that hurt you simply because you were afraid of losing someone? How many times have you settled for less than what you truly deserve, convincing yourself that a little bit of love is better than nothing at all? If these words resonate with you, if at this very moment you feel a stirring inside you, an urge to rethink how you experience love, then this is your moment. This is the moment to shift your perspective, to break free from patterns that no longer serve you. It's time to choose yourself. It's time to stop chasing after those who don't want to stay. It's time to step into your power and realize that real love, the kind that is genuine, fulfilling, and reciprocal, never needs to be begged for. True love flows effortlessly when you are aligned with yourself, when you embrace your worth fully and unapologetically. I want to hear your thoughts. Share in the comments. What part of this message struck a chord within you? Have you ever experienced a moment of awakening, a moment when you finally recognized your true value? And if this message speaks to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear these words, someone who may still be struggling, someone who might not yet realize that love should never require humiliation or self-sacrifice. Subscribe and turn on notifications so that this message can reach more people. Because the more people understand their worth, the more people stop settling for crumbs, and the more we will begin to build relationships based on respect, authenticity, and genuine connection. Remember, everything starts with you. The way you treat yourself, the way you value yourself, the way you decide who has access to your life and who doesn't. These choices define the kind of love you will experience. So don't be afraid to let go of what doesn't serve you. Don't be afraid to choose yourself. Because when you do, you don't just transform your own life, you become an example for others. And the world needs more people who love themselves enough to never have to beg for love.